My name is Mira, and I am 23 years old. Tonight, as rain taps softly on my window, and the street lamps paint long silver lines across my desk, I open my journal, press record on my small microphone, and breathe in. I want to tell you a story that still trembles inside my chest. A story about promises, about endings that change, and about the quiet strength that blooms after storms. I hope you will walk beside me, step by step, word by word, and feel each heartbeat the way I felt it. I was born in a small coastal town where the sea smelled of salt and sweet tea leaves drying in open baskets. My earliest memory is of sitting on my father's shoulders as waves rushed over our feet. He would lift me high and shout, "Mira, the sky is wide for dreamers." His voice was strong, like the deep hum of a conch shell, and I believed him with all my tiny heart. My mother stood close, her sari lifted above her ankles, laughing as gulls circled overhead. She was a quiet woman, gentle in every movement, but her eyes shone bright when she looked at father and me. That beach felt like forever, a safe, endless place where promises could never break. There was another voice in my childhood, Arav. He was our neighbor's son, 1 year older, always running faster than the wind. We built sand castles that never survived the tide, but every time the water washed them away, Arav would grin and say, "We'll build better ones tomorrow." One evening, with the sky burning orange and the smell of roasted corn thick in the air, Arav drew a small heart in the wet sand and pressed a shell into its center. "This means forever," he whispered. "For you and me." I nodded and pressed my palm over the shell, believing that simple shape could hold eternity. Life felt light, like kites dancing above the shore, until the day the sea turned gray. My father's fishing boat did not return. I remember sitting on the rocks, the wind sharp against my cheeks, staring at the horizon where his boat should appear. Villagers came with soft voices and downcast eyes, but their words were like distant thunder, low, rolling, impossible to grasp. Mother held my hand so tightly it left a mark, yet her own hands shook. That night, the sky seemed to fall into the ocean. Salt burned my throat as I cried, and the promise of forever quivered like a candle in a storm. Days became heavy. Mother sold jewelry, 1 gold bangle at a time, to pay debts father left behind. I learned to carry buckets of water from the well and sweep the courtyard before dawn. Arav helped when he could, but he had his own chores, his own dreams to chase. Still, he never let my birthday pass without a new shell wrapped in paper. Each shell was different, spiral, fan, tiny cup, but each carried the same word, forever. When I turned 16, Mother said we could not stay by the sea any longer. Work was scarce, and every wave reminded her of the boat that never returned. We moved inland to my uncle's small flat above a spice shop. The air smelled of cardamom and cumin instead of salt. I missed the ocean's roar, but I swallowed my sadness and helped Mother pack. Arav came the night before we left. He pressed a smooth, pearly shell into my palm. "College is waiting for me in the city," he said. but I'll find you. Again, you promised me forever. I tried to smile, but my eyes blurred. The next morning, the bus carried us away from the shoreline, and the horizon swallowed the place where my childhood had lived. The city was loud, horns, sellers shouting, trains rattling overhead. I enrolled in a local college, studying early childhood education, because I wanted to give children the safe world my father once gave me. Mother found work as a cook in a small cafe, stirring pots of lentils and humming old songs. Evenings, I read by a dusty window and let memories drift, like paper boats. Letters from Arav came rarely but brightly, each page smelling faintly of sea breeze, as if he bottled the air of our old beach. He wrote about lectures, crowded hostels, and late-night cups of instant noodles. At the bottom of every letter, he drew a tiny shell and wrote, "Forever stretches, but it never breaks." 2 years passed. One winter morning, a phone call shattered my quiet routine. Mother had collapsed at work. I rushed to the hospital, my sandals slapping wet pavement, only to see her pale beneath harsh white lights. Doctors said words like weak heart and stress. I held her hand and whispered stories of the beach, of Father's voice, of how the sky was wide for dreamers. She smiled, faint but real, and said, "Live wide, Mira. Live wider than sorrow." She drifted to sleep. I stayed all night listening to machines beep like distant waves. I needed money for her treatment, so I took a night job at the spice shop below our room, labeling jars, sweeping floors. My grades slipped. Sleep became thin. Yet each dawn I reminded myself, resilience is just another way to say love. Arav called once, his voice full of panic when he heard about Mother. He promised to visit, but exams trapped him. I said it was all right. Promises are softer than hospital bills. Mother recovered slowly, like a flower refusing to wilt. We celebrated with a small cake, cream melting in the heat. She held my face in her thin hands and said, "Your father would be proud." Tears fell onto icing, sweet and salty at once. That night, I lay awake, imagining Father on the beach, arms open, waiting. Graduation arrived on a humid afternoon. My gown stuck to my skin, and the auditorium buzzed with families cheering. Mother clapped until her hands turned red. Arav sent a message. "Train delayed. Waiting on platform. I'll see you soon." I tucked the phone into my bag and stepped onto the stage. When I returned to my seat, my bag vibrated again. Another message. "Train canceled. Heavy rain." I stared at those words, feeling an old ache. But I lifted my chin and applauded thanks to the universe for letting me reach this moment. Weeks later, Arav finally arrived. We met at a small cafe by the riverside. He looked older, shoulders broader, eyes lined with worry. We talked for hours, sipping sweet chai. He asked about Mother's health. I asked about his new engineering job. When the sun dipped low, he reached across the table and took my hand. "Remember that shell?" he whispered. "Forever still lives in my pocket." My heart fluttered, but fear tugged at its edges. I had learned that promises could fade like footprints in sand. Still, I nodded, letting hope stir. We began to meet on weekends, walks in quiet lanes, shared doses from street vendors, laughter over silly memories. But the city pulled us in different directions. Arav's company sent him on long trips. My new teaching job demanded early mornings and lesson plans. Late at night, I folded paper stars for my students and wondered if love could stretch across crowded trains and disconnected phone calls. One evening, after a long absence, Arav returned looking exhausted. We sat on a park bench under a jacaranda tree shedding violet petals. He spoke of promotions, of moving abroad for a year, maybe 2. "Come with me," he urged. The word forever hovered between us like a fragile bubble. My mother's recent cough, my students' eager faces, the spice shop rent, all rooted me here. Gently, I shook my head. His shoulders slumped. He stood, pressed a kiss on my hair, and whispered, "Then promise you'll wait." I wanted to, but my voice was lost among rustling leaves. I watched him walk away, suitcase swinging, petals falling around us like silent snow. Letters came less often. Calls dropped mid-sentence. I kept teaching, guiding small hands to write their names. Each child's laugh stitched my broken heart a little stronger. Mother's cough faded with medicine and rest, and she returned to singing as she cooked. Still, at night I traced the shells on my shelf, the heart, the spiral, the fan, wondering which promise would crack first, his or mine. One monsoon afternoon, as thunder rumbled, a package arrived, a small wooden box and a letter from Arav's sister. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside lay the shell from our first forever, now chipped on one side. The letter said Arav's plane had crashed into the sea during a business trip. Search teams found no survivors. I felt the room tilt. Rain hammered the roof like drums of war. My body folded, and a sound escaped me. A cry older than language, deeper than any storm. Mother rushed in, held me, rocked me as if I were still 5. The sky outside wept with us. Days after, I locked myself in my room, the shell clutched in my fist. I replayed memories like old films, his sand-drawn heart, his laughter echoing against waves, his whispered forever in the cafe. Each scene ended too soon. I begged the universe for another frame, another breath. Grief poured through skin, pooled in bones. Yet even in that darkness, my father's words stirred. The sky is wide for dreamers. I realized I had 2 choices. Close. My eyes and drown, or lift my gaze and remember that skies, no matter how stormy, always hold light beyond the clouds. I chose light, but it was not easy. I began small, waking before sunrise, stepping onto our tiny balcony, letting dawn paint my face. I wrote letters to Arav, simple, present tense letters, telling him about my day, my students, the way the jacaranda tree bloomed again. I placed each letter in a jar, buried it in soil under the tree outside our building. It felt like planting seeds of goodbye that might one day grow into peace. Months passed. I saved money and arranged a school excursion to the coast for my students, many of whom had never seen the sea. When we reached the beach, the tide rushed in, wild and white. Children screamed with delight, chasing foam. I stood, barefoot on the wet sand, the same sand where my father once lifted me high. I took the chipped shell from my pocket and knelt. Slowly, I drew a heart around it, just like Arav did years ago. Then I whispered, "Thank you for your forever. I will carry the ending from here." A wave rolled in, covering the heart, lifting the shell, pulling it back into the ocean where promises had always belonged. I let it go. As the sun set, one student tugged my sari and said, "Miss Mira, the sky is so big." I smiled through tears and replied, "Yes, and it is waiting for your dreams." In that moment, I felt a quiet warmth spread inside, a blend of grief and gratitude, loss and love, woven together like sea and horizon. The beach was no longer only a place of endings, it was also a place of beginnings. Now, as I sit by my window, the rain has stopped. I can hear distant laughter from the street below, and the smell of Mother's cardamom tea drifts in. I think about forever, how it is not a straight line, but a circle, always returning, always opening. Arav forgot the ending, or maybe life chose a different one, but the story did not end with him. It flows through me, through every child who learns to write their name, through every wave that greets the shore. So let my final words be a whisper to you, listener, wherever you are. Promises may break, endings may change, but your heart can still beat in wide, hopeful rhythm. Stand by the sea of your own life, feel the wind, hold the shells of your memories, and when the tide takes them back, know that healing begins in the space they leave behind. I am Mira, a dreamer beneath a wide sky, and I am still writing my forever. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us bring more emotional, heartfelt stories like this one to life. And if you've ever experienced love, loss, or healing of your own, we'd love to hear your story in the comments below. Remember, no matter how painful the ending, every heart holds the power to begin again. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the next story.